Wait a minute. Do you hear that? That sound. Boom. Boom. Oh! The Demogorgon!
We're deep shit.
Dungeons and Dragons is everywhere. Whether it's showing up at your local cafe, invading your Twitch streams and TV shows, or even taking over your dining room table, the tabletop game has made one hell of a comeback. Since the release of its 5th edition a couple years ago, the game has seen a huge resurgence, to the point where even people who never heard about it as kids are now playing it as adults. Like this guy. But why now? How come the game has suddenly made a huge comeback, seemingly out of the blue? Well, I went and did me some digging, and here's the 4 biggest reasons why Dungeons and Dragons is back, baby. 1. Star power. Dungeons and Dragons first came out in 1974 after being created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and it totally captured America by storm, especially among kids and teenagers. And why is that important? Well, those kids and teenagers all fell to the inevitable entropy of time and grew the hell up. And a lot of them grew up to become writers or comedians or directors or actors or game designers. D&D had been a huge part of their childhoods, and it was a big part of who they were. So when it became clear that the 2000s was the century of the nerd, well, they all came tumbling out the D&D closet. When you can watch Vin frickin' Diesel play the game online, it sure as hell makes it seem a lot more normal.
Doesn't matter what decade you're in, guys. A critical is a critical.
As you pull your arm back, you can see a bit of...
But more importantly, many of the creators of today's most popular media have baked their D&D DNA into what they're creating. You've got Dan Harmon with Community and Rick and Morty, Stephen Colbert repping the Nerd Nation on his Late Show, and of course George R.R. Martin with the phenomenon that is Game of Thrones. And of course you can pretty much guarantee that any RPG video game developer has been influenced by D&D. And that leads us right into our second point. 2. The resurgence of fantasy. Welcome to 2017, where everyone knows who Aragorn is, where we tune in once a year to watch a TV show that shows off sex, dragons, and ice zombies all in the same hour, and where the relationships we've built with video game characters and fantasy medieval worlds bring us to frickin' tears. One thing is clear. Right now, people fucking love fantasy. And what do we humans do when we love something? Well, we consume it ravenously until we're fat, bloated, and lying on the couch with a food coma we think might never go away. Or is that just me? Anyway, people are into fantasy right now, and they want more of it. So when a game comes along that not only allows them to get more of that sweet, sweet medieval fantasy, but also puts them in the middle of their own story that they get to share with their friends, well, it's no wonder it's gotten so big. Dungeons and Dragons gives them a familiar world to the ones they see in their TV shows and their video games, but where they're the main characters, and they get to decide how the story unfolds. On top of all that, by featuring the game in popular TV shows like Stranger Things and Community, the game seems more approachable now than ever.
Ew, Hector the Well-Endowed? I bet.
I didn't know you just grabbed one at random. I made that one with Troy in mind.
Yeah, I bet you did.
And that rolls us right into point 3, the impact of D&D streamers, and especially Critical Role. The biggest issue with trying to get someone into Dungeons and Dragons is demystifying what the game is actually all about. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I'd probably have said that it's an intense number-crunching experience with a bunch of dudes who are still living in their mom's basements. And that's because I knew sweet fuck all about the game beyond what the media had portrayed it as before our golden age of fantasy. And that media had labeled the game as a virgins-only, Satan-worshipping club. And while the game's appearance on TV shows like Community went a long way to showing what it was, it didn't really show you any of the details.
No, this is a role-playing game. It takes place entirely in our collective imagination.
Ooh, yeah. Neil.
But then, in mid-2015, along came Critical Role, a show where a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons, and it is fucking amazing.
It's a simple binary choice. You can all die right now, or you can turn over our friend and we will probably leave you in peace. I would promise, but I don't make promises to dogs.
Oh, shit! It It's a show that within its very first episode breaks down all of the stigmas someone might have with D&D. It's not in a basement, it's actually in a well-lit room. It's not a bunch of virgins, it's a bunch of really attractive people. It's not hectic math on a calculator, it's acting and improvisation and becoming a new character. And probably most importantly, it's not just guys, it's women too. In a single episode, Critical Role shows that D&D is a game that's open to everyone, and anyone can have a great time playing it. And that's probably why their first episode has almost 5 million views. It's a perfect way to show someone on the fence what D&D is all about. The impact that the show and others like it have had on broadening the Dungeons & Dragons community cannot be overstated.
The dragon pulls its head back and looks about at everyone screaming and pushes off the tower. As it does, you see the stonework crack and the top of Allura's tower shatter.
Oh my god.
Collapse, smashing into the city streets around you. At which point the dragon and takes off again above you.
4. It's in person with your friends. This is probably the biggest reason why the game has made such a huge comeback. We live in a time where a lot of our social interaction is digital. We text our spouses, we Snapchat our friends, we FaceTime our parents, and we play video games online over voice chat. What Dungeons & Dragons offers is a way to get your friends all in the same room and you'll share an experience together. You enter a world of pure imagination, and together you'll slay evil lords and combat mighty dragons. But together you'll also experience loss and defeat. You'll laugh at the good times, curse your fortune at the bad times, but in the end, you'll overcome every obstacle that comes in your way. And each of those adventures, whether good or bad, becomes a story. A moment in time that you all shared and experienced together in the same place. And that makes D&D a pretty special experience. Hey fellow nerds, if you want to check out any of my sources, they're down in the description down below. And if this has sparked your interest, or even if you wanted to try D&D before, just get a few friends together and give it a one-time try. I only played for my first time this April, and I've been hooked ever since. And again, if you want to see what the game is all about, I highly recommend you check out Critical Role. Them is some talented motherfuckers.